Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Fill Your Cup podcast today. I'm Caitlin Reber, if you haven't caught up, and I'm super excited for who we have today. We have Sunny Day, but also Miss Oklahoma, our reigning Miss Oklahoma. So everyone say hi to Sunny.
Hello. Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Of course.
I've been watching your podcast, your cute little videos on Instagram, so I feel very honored that you're here.
I'm like, these little videos, I was like, I knew what I believed so much, and I was like, I'll just keep putting out these little videos, and then so many people were like, we need like longer versions.
Yeah, right? No, they're
this.
Cute.
And I was like, okay, like, Lord, if I need to do a podcast, like, you can make that happen.
Yep, absolutely.
But yeah, we'll start off, we'll do a couple different things, but just to give everyone a short little spiel about yourself, and then we can kind of get into our questions.
Okay, well, I am obviously Miss Oklahoma. I've been competing in pageants for 11 years, but I've only done the Miss America organization twice. I was very intimidated by the talent area of competition, and ironically, the first year I competed, everyone was like, your talent was so bad. Don't do that again. So when I found that out that I could come back, I really made sure to hone in on that because I knew that was my weakness. But aside from being Miss Oklahoma, I am a teacher. I am still teaching full-time. While being Miss Oklahoma, it's been a very interesting year. That was not the original plan. So we can talk about that if you want to know more about that. But I did not plan on teaching this year if I won Miss Oklahoma. So change of heart the night I won. But I'm also a big sister. I have two little brothers, two little sisters, and they're the highlight of my life. But the past 5 months of my life has been absolutely insane and so exciting and surreal. So I feel like my life just kind of flipped upside down in a positive way, but in a very enlightening way as well whenever I got crowned on June 10th. So I don't feel like I've slept since then.
It feels like it was like 2 weeks ago.
I feel like it was like 2 years ago. I feel like I've been doing this for
you're like, I feel like I've been doing it for a while.
time.
Like, half of me is like, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe, like, Miss Oklahoma was so long ago. And then I'm like, how is it November? Like, I need to get schoolwork done. Mom. And someone was like, yeah, Thanksgiving is next week. And I was like, some of those deadlines are coming up.
Yeah. Well, now that I have a Miss America date, the time is definitely looking smaller and smaller.
Yeah. So they announced it. When is it going to be again?
So it is going to be January 6th through 14th. At Disney in Orlando.
So fun.
So excited. I'm so pumped. I feel like a little kid.
Yeah. Oh, I would 100% be too. I was like, Mom, they're going to Disney.
Yeah,
like,
so cool.
I felt excited for you guys.
Oh, I can't wait. I think it's going to be a really cool experience. I was almost more excited for my family to go than I was because my parents have not been on an airplane. No one in my family has been to Disney, so it's really exciting for them to have that experience as well. And, of course, to watch me at Miss America.
Yeah, of course. Well, I'm sure we'll get into all of that and above, but something that's just so important to me is really getting down into like the depth of like heart and purpose and
for sure
all of that. So I'm gonna ask you a question that I ask everyone.
Perfect.
And it's, where in life have you found that you find fulfillment and that you find your joy?
That's a very easy question for me to answer, but before I say the answer, I will say it's also the biggest, like the most unexpected thing that happened in my life, and that's being a teacher. Every day, and I'm going to be honest, 95% of the time it's a hard day, especially at my school with my students. But they're also amazing days and such amazing opportunities to learn and grow, and getting to pour into these kids who don't often have someone pouring into them is very fulfilling. But I did not know I wanted to be a teacher until 7 days after I graduated college with a degree in something else. So it goes to say that even, timing is so important, but even what you don't see yourself doing is sometimes where you're supposed to be. And I would have never thought that something that makes my days so long and hard is also what makes my days worth going on each and every day.
Yeah. I feel like that's just like the epitome of fulfillment. It's life is a sacrifice. Life is hard no matter what. But it's the things that you like, it's worth it to put your all into.
Yep.
And it's hard to find those things
Absolutely.
sometimes.
It is.
But yeah, like, I'm watching Sunny's Instagram, like, all the time, and she's getting up at about crack of dawn, going to teach her students, and then going to do appearances, and, my mom was a teacher, so I know that it's a very full packed schedule. And I remember before you won, I don't remember what post it was or anything like that, but I think you posted something, and I was like, I just have such a respect for her, because I was like, I know it's really hard, especially to not teach in like a quote unquote top tier school.
Yeah.
Because that's how my mom was too.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I was like 4 or 5. We were living in a tiny house in Yukon.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we were just hanging out with a kid that my mom taught.
Yeah.
And
I love that.
That's how I've grown up. And I think that's so special, because it is very obvious that you have a heart for the most like precious things in life.
Thank you. It's the best job in the world. I hope more people want to be teachers, because I don't think a lot of people realize that we are more than just teachers. I'm telling you, I'm a nurse. Mm-hmm. I am a social worker, a counselor, a mom, a dad, a big brother, big sister. There's many roles that we play, so every day's new. So if you know anyone who gets really bored doing the same thing every day, tell them to be a teacher.
I'll be like, well, I know someone that you can get connected with.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think, okay, something that I want to hop into, I wasn't going to hop into it right away, but if I don't say it, then I'm going to forget. We're just going to get right into it, so social emotional learning always been super important to me. And as someone who had grown anxiety once in a school environment, and it got so intense that I was having to leave classes all the time, and in a culture where like mental health is a buzzword, but also people aren't actually like actively doing a ton for it, especially within the schools. Yep. I wanted to know like what like your experience firsthand on like teaching your kids who have all different types of backgrounds, like what it means to find, and like purpose is a big word to comprehend. And I think that's the biggest thing. That's the biggest thing about this podcast, is that I really look into breaking it down, because purpose is like the little joys in life. But like, what has been your experience in seeing kids that feel like they don't have that, or feeling like they don't know how to find that, or like, are you kind of picking up what I'm putting down?
Well, the first thing I will say is I think any teacher right now, probably in the state of Oklahoma, feels a little nervous to have those kind of conversations with their students, or to implement social emotional learning, just because of the political climate. And that's what really made me want to be Miss Oklahoma, because as a teacher, I'm not supposed to talk about it. But no one can take my teaching certification if I'm wearing a crown and sash and doing the same thing that I do for thousands of students, what I do for my own every single day. And so I actually had a conversation today about how you were the author of your own narrative. That's one of the presentations I give to high school students. And today I pretty much told them, I'm very easygoing at assemblies. I sat down on the side of the stage and I just told them my story, where I came from. The things were not easy. There were so many other directions that I could have taken in life very easily. But I had a wake-up call as a very young girl and said, I'm going to focus on my education and I'm going to become something. And to some people, they're like, why are you a teacher? Oh, because that doesn't make a lot of money. But for me, not growing up in money, becoming someone didn't mean that I was going to have a bunch of money. It
becoming
meant that
someone doesn't mean money.
Exactly. It means really you define it yourself, but for me it meant making an impact and making my mark on the world. So I do that in my own classroom, but today, just by simply sharing my story and being vulnerable, I got 300 followers from all of those high schoolers within a matter of 30 minutes, and 2 of them messaged me and immediately told me that they related to my story and broke down the details of their own story, and that's what it's about. And what a lot of people don't realize is, as educators, we have the ability to do that in our classrooms, to be vulnerable. As adults, it's our job to, before we can teach them academics, to develop relationships with them. A lot of these kids going through trauma don't have trusted relationships or trusted adults in their lives. And so we have to prove ourselves trustworthy in our classrooms before we can expect a kid to be willing to open up.
Yeah.
But when it comes to opening up, then you have to think, what if these kids don't even know what their emotions are? What if they don't know what anger or frustration is?
Right.
We have to help them identify those feelings. So I've created about 5 years ago a curriculum, which made Miss Oklahoma easy because my platform, I wanted to be my life's work. And since I've been traveling the state, I share something called my Mind Guide. It is a 20-page self-paced like SEL workbook for kids of all ages to work through. And so it's been accessible to parents, superintendents, principals, and it's been shared in all the schools. But I actually am building a website right now, and all of my resources will be on there for free. But I've been able to partner with 988 to help me have those heavy conversations, because I know that I'm not a school counselor or a psychiatrist.
Right, yeah.
And so I think it's important for me to have research or people who know the research to back me before giving these presentations. But this is something that I hope that all schools will have access to. 988 is willing to give their curriculum to all schools for free. And so I think that we need to just stop caring what people on a political stance say, because at the end of the day, educators are the ones with those kids, and we know what they need really more than anyone, us and the parents.
You're having that personal experience with them.
8 hours a day.
I literally got chills from that.
Oh, you're so sweet.
It's so, just the weight of the impact you are making is so special. And I think what just stands out to me so much is you're doing this 24/7 before you got a crown on your head. And it just helps me identify so much with like what I want to do, because for me, this organization is not about me winning or me looking a certain way for people. It's about getting my heart out and using a platform for this time in my life to do so.
Absolutely.
And I love that you're taking the time to create resources for the kids that don't have people that do that. Because I've been around people with extremely different backgrounds my entire life. I have a massive family, and also I'm grateful for everyone in my family and my life, but I come from divorced parents who come from divorced parents, and it has given me a lot of people to love, but it's also given me a lot of different point of views on situations. And growing up I'm the oldest of 6 siblings, 5 or 6, I don't know, 5 or 6 siblings. 2 of them live in New York with my dad, and 3 of them live here. And then with that, my family here fostered when I was very young. And there's something about talking about what you want to do or what's right for the world or how to help kids especially, and then actually doing it and seeing the outcome and how it affects, because it can affect you personally whenever you're giving your heart out to them.
Exactly.
And I think I can pick up very quickly that in those ways we're very similar, and I'm sure that you take on a lot of the burdens that people give you, but the fact that kids, adults, elders have someone like you is very special.
Well, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But definitely to the burdens, absolutely, yes. I feel like there's like a little suitcase that I just take everywhere with me, and it just keeps building.
It just keeps bulging.
But it's also very humbling to hear other people's stories, because I know that my upbringing wasn't great, but I know that there's worse out there. And I was telling the kids at the assemblies today, because they're like, what's your biggest regret? It's like, I just told you my story, and my biggest regret is that 10 years ago, I wouldn't have opened up about any of that. And I was so ashamed of where I came from and so embarrassed. And I said, I'm sure there's a lot of you who have your own circumstances. I said, there's no reason to be ashamed, because we were given the cards that we were given for a reason. I was like, and it didn't take me until maybe 3 years ago to realize what that reason was, even though I was already doing it. And I was, just telling them that my biggest regret, like I said, is that I was ever embarrassed of my circumstances, because you can't control where you come from.
Yeah. No, definitely. I think to kind of help clue people in, if you would like to go into your story and your testimony and what you've gone through as a kid and then as a teenager, I'd love to hear it. I know everyone else would too.
Well, my family, I always say, for the first 9 years of my life, it was like sunshine and rainbows. It was beautiful. Me, my little sister, my mom was pregnant. Parents were in love, and we had a house that we built together. But my dad's side of the family had a very dark history with substance abuse. And this was something I already knew, seeing my grandparents struggle. But something clicked, and my dad started using again. And it did not take but a week for us to lose our house, to lose my dad. And so we very quickly went from this beautiful, normal life that I had known for the entirety of my life to my mom now having to, instead of taking care of us at home, working 3 jobs. So there goes the time with mom. And my dad was now living on the streets. So there's my dad, which meant I'm at home learning how to pack lunches, learning how to teach my sister her schoolwork before I do my own. Just growing up really fast and learning to be a parent instead of just a sister. My mom is the hardest working human that I've ever met in my entire life. She really taught me that I can do anything and I can do it all at once. But I do feel really sad that we went through what we did, more so for my mom, because she missed out on so much time with us. She missed out on time, being a woman, being a young woman, being a young mom, and getting to have friends or do all the things. But, as a little girl, I had severe anxiety because all I did was worry about my dad. Was he going to be safe? I knew what overdose was, so I always asked, was he going to overdose? Or him being homeless in Oklahoma, he was either going to melt on the sidewalk for as far as I was concerned, or freeze. Right. I was terrified. It caused so much anxiety. And so it also made me afraid to let people in because I was embarrassed, like I said, and I didn't want people to know about our circumstances. Me and my sister would ask the bus driver to drop us off blocks away because we didn't want people to know where we lived. And that was pretty much my life for the entirety of 9 years old until I was about 18. But then, or really beyond that, but about a year and a half ago, or it was 2 years ago when I competed in 2021, I was so ready to win Miss Oklahoma. And right before, it was obviously COVID, but right before competition, my grandma had overdosed. But she did not pass away. She was in a hospital for 2 weeks, and there was no one in my family who was really reliable enough to take over power of attorney and to make decisions, so I did. And I thought I was doing the right thing for my family. I was going up there every day after a long day of teaching in my silent, isolated classroom, Zooming with my students. I would also be on the phone with the hospital checking with my grandma, and then I'd stop at the hospital afterwards, but I couldn't go in to see how she was, just hearing word of mouth from doctors. So after about 2 weeks of her being in there, we decided to let her go. And then 6 months later, right after Miss Oklahoma, I'm already brokenhearted, already defeated. 6 months later, my grandpa passes away from kidney and liver failure from excessive alcohol use. And it wasn't until I lost both of my grandparents that I finally had the most difficult but the most important conversation with my dad. And I literally looked at him and I said, "You're next." And I don't know how else to say that. I said, I've been fearing this day for my entire life. And after losing both of them, I can tell you that's all I can take. I cannot lose you in the same way. And I wish I would have had that conversation a lot sooner because it made an impact. My dad has now been sober. He has a house. He has a job. And I'm so proud, but there's still a part of me, like little Sunny, that misses out on all of those times that I could have had with my dad. I was a daddy's girl. And for the longest time, it felt like my best friend just walked out until I was able to fully comprehend and understand what substance abuse was, or what mental health was, or why my mom was choosing work over necessarily being at home. And so things were really hard, and I had to grow up fast. And all of those things contributed to so many different factors that impacted me as a teenager or in college. I isolated myself from people just because that's all I knew to do as a kid. Instead of making friends and mingling with people and being involved in stuff at school, I wanted to work full time because that's what I saw. And so those are things now, like qualities about myself that I really appreciate, self-discipline and hard work. But I realized that I missed out on so much of being a kid. And a lot of the teachers at my school say, I think the reason you love teaching these kids is because you missed out on so much of being a kid. And like, I'm the teacher that'll go play soccer with them at recess or get my hands dirty. We do crazy things. I'm like a kid. And so all of that has led me to where I want to be now. And it didn't take me until a few years ago to realize that. And I am grateful for my story, for the struggles, which is now turned into what I believe is to be a success story. But it wasn't easy. And it took a lot of time for me to accept where I came from.
Yeah.
That was a mouthful. I'm so sorry.
No, it's incredible.
Thank you.
It's not even, it's just amazing to me that you are the person that you are, and it is just so clear of your just personality as a human that you are the person that you are. And I know that we live in a crazy world. I know this is like kind of off topic of the podcast, but like just like from me to you, like we live in a crazy world where everyone thinks something different, and I'm sure you've learned this, but like I hope you're so proud of yourself, because like, and I'm sure in the interview the judges said this, but like you are the big sister, the teacher, everything that like I wish I would have had.
Thank you.
And I didn't even have a story like that. And I know that you're touching so many people. Like I know so many people. You guys are gonna have to push rewind on that because it truly shows that you write your own story and you get to decide what your life looks like. And you can face the most gut-wrenching things in life, and you can still be a success. But it's what do you define success as? What does success look like for you? And I think that if someone's dedicated, they can reach it. But what I think matters more is defining like what true success is, because like we said earlier, it's not about the lights and the money and the crown and the sash. And if you win Miss America, the country will be like forever changed by you. But if you don't, you're still going to touch thousands and thousands of people, whether or not. And I think that's just like, I feel like that's just so evident on your life.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. I'm so impressed that you can take your life and do that. And I know as someone that's had lots of different figures in my life, and I've had amazing, like I'm blessed to have amazing parents despite going through divorce and all that. But as a kid, still not, and the reality of it all, I love him so much and he loves me so much, and I'm sure that he watches this. But in the reality of it, my dad, my biological dad, wasn't here, and it was, I think, for the best because of the life that he created and the life that he's been able to give me now. But I've had wonderful people step into my life, but because of that and because of experiences I've had on my own with school and people and just life in general, I really had to decide for myself whether I was going to let that take me down or make something of it. And I had a possibly like could be life-changing phone call with someone last week about an internship. And she was like, I'm just so impressed that you're a senior in high school and you're doing all the things that you do. And I was like, thank you. And like it was just like I've had to decide for myself, and it's so out of the norm to want to make your own path. I think especially always it's scary, but as like a high schooler it's very intimidating.
Definitely.
To make your own path and to stand up for what's right, because where I was, a lot of people didn't do that, and they were okay with being treated in ways that didn't make them feel important. And because I removed myself from the situation, I've had a lot of people try to make me feel weak for that and be like, oh, like it's really not that big of a deal. Or what I've gone through with anxiety, I've had people tell me that like, when is it going to be done? Like, when are you going to be fixed? And I've had to let those moments go and decide to change myself for who I wanted to be, or continue to be who I wanted to be and not change myself for them.
Yeah.
And I think that's just so inspiring that you're teaching so many kids and adults to do that as well.
Well, thank you. That's my number one goal. I always say if I can impact one person every single day, then I've done my part. Like, I can't put too much pressure on myself because I can't completely change the world, but I can try to change people's hearts and perspectives on how they feel about themselves in their own lives. So that's my goal, not just as Miss Oklahoma, but just as a person.
Yeah. Well, to bring it up a little bit, I love for you to share like some of the things that you're excited for the future, either as Miss Oklahoma, like maybe your plans for the rest of the year, or just like for your life as a teacher, or as just a sunny day, you know, just without all the extra things.
Well, I feel like all of my roles, whether it's, you know, I'm sunny day or I'm wearing my Miss Day hat or my Miss Oklahoma crown, I feel like all of my roles really coexist. And that was something I really made a promise to myself this year going into Miss Oklahoma and hopefully winning, was if I do win, I can't lose sight of myself, which is why I didn't cover my tattoos. I decided to style my hair the way I wanted to style it. I wore clothes that embodied me and my own personal style, and I was vulnerable in everything that I had to say. And so for me, what I'm looking forward to is just continuing what I've been doing. Nothing is really changing. I luckily have Thanksgiving and Christmas break coming up, so that's going to be a joy.
I'm sure.
I haven't taken a nap in a long time, so that's the number one thing I'm looking forward to. I did find out that I'm hosting Thanksgiving this year, so I decided to make things a little easier on me. I was like, okay, well, if I'm hosting it, we're doing it my way. So we're doing a Thanksgiving brunch at my apartment with my family. I was like, we will just make a butt ton of breakfast food and chow down and have like hot apple cider. I was like, I am not making a turkey.
Well, I mean, that sounds great too. I mean, my mom can say herself, I literally chow down on the breakfast food.
It's the same. It's
so
the best.
I mean, for Christmas, like everyone has their traditions. For my family, Thanksgiving, I think, is bigger than Christmas.
Really?
And my grandma lives out on a farm. And our family's gotten so big. She has 21, 22 grandkids now. So, and she comes to Miss Oklahoma. Her getaway is Miss Oklahoma week every year, and she's made it to every recital my whole life.
That's so sweet.
But now the family's grown so big that we have it in the barn. So a big table gets laid out, and like all the heaters for the food is like on the tractor or the pickups.
It's like a real feast.
Oh yeah,
real Thanksgiving.
Oh, real feast. But then we get to Christmas, and like my pick for every year that like we have to do is like our breakfast casserole.
See, that's what I'm most excited to make.
Yes. And I'll like have hash browns in it. Like I'm a potato girly. I'll take it in every shape and form as long as it's not a sweet potato.
Yep. We are the same.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's
then now you're invited to Thanksgiving brunch next time I do it.
Because I'm going to need the breakfast food too.
Perfect. No, so definitely breaks and holidays, of course. I think with Miss America coming up close, I think the holidays are going to be a really nice distraction, kind of keep me grounded. I have been trying to avoid what day of the week it is and the date because it's kind of easing my anxiety. But then today I told an assembly full of hundreds of kids that it was Monday, and they're like, you're nuts. So it's not good that I'm not keeping up with the dates. So don't suggest that. But I have a lot of stuff coming up with school. I'm the emergent bilingual teacher this year, so we always do Christmas around the world. I have kids from Vietnam, from Korea, Honduras, Mexico, Guatemala, and so it's really cool that we get to kind of talk about how our cultures celebrate Christmas, but their families will bring food from their different countries. And so we get to host that, which is exciting. And then Miss America is literally like 6 weeks away. So it's going to be a lot of crunch time. I have some more appearances coming up, but it's really slowed down. I wanted to make October really busy so I could focus on Miss America prep. But I don't know what Miss America prep looks like for me because I feel like me only having a few months to prepare for Miss Oklahoma was why I won. Because I
Yeah.
had no time to stress about it. You know, these girls
Yeah,
have their titles
yeah.
for so long that you do the title, you fulfill the duties, and then all you do is focus on prep.
Right.
I won. My paperwork and spring meeting were due within weeks. So I had
Yeah.
no time to prepare or even think about Miss Oklahoma. I was like, okay, we're just going. Like,
You're
we're just
like,
going to have a
let's
good
just
time.
Walk
Yep.
with it.
So I'm just going to try to have that same mindset. It's like, just, you know, reading my devotionals and staying authentic to myself, being intentional in my classroom, being intentional in my appearances, just really being present, because I feel like even though I'm not working with coaches or I'm not walking every weekend, not practicing talent every single day, I'm singing at every assembly, which is preparing me for talent. I am speaking about my story and my platform every single day at these assemblies. So I'm well versed in what I need to say in my interviews. So I think just being Miss Oklahoma and being a teacher in itself is preparation for Miss America.
Yeah.
So the next few months are very relaxed. I'm going to at least keep myself relaxed.
Yeah.
So I don't
it's definitely,
panic.
It's definitely an intentional thing you have to do.
Yeah.
I'm the type of person that, like, anytime, I'm really trying to get better at it, because anytime someone asks me how I'm doing, I'm like, I'm busy. I'm like,
I always say I'm tired.
I'm sleepy, you know, because well, and then I'll take stuff off my schedule, and I'm like, I'm so bored out of my mind.
I need something to do.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Same.
I definitely get that, but it's like an intentional thing that I had to do. And I think whenever I was really it's a daily decision to decide what brings you purpose and contentment and all the things. But whenever I was really having to, like, hone into it to, like, heal my heart and heal who I was, I had to really take time to just, like, be quiet and let myself be intentional with things. And I tell this story all the time, and I think a lot of people think it's small, but all the time, for fun facts, I'll say that I love going to watch sunsets. I love going to watch sunsets. And for anyone who doesn't know, we like for your resume, you'll have, like, a fun fact area or something like that. Or one of the things on my bucket list is to go to this specific mountain in, or it's actually a volcano in Hawaii, and like watch the sunrise. And people wonder why, because it's like, you know, especially in Oklahoma, everyone's seeing the most beautiful sunset from everywhere. But it was my place of, like, so much healing, because I was so very intentional about it and, like, intentional about letting it give me peace. And I think that's why it's always been a safe place, because I always made myself like have peace with it. And as I think a lot of people in our culture we have a very hardworking, I'm surrounded, at least, by very hardworking people. And something that I've really had to learn, and, like, a huge advice I have for people, and I'm sure you do too, is, like, when you're doing something, be in that moment. And you can't be worrying about, like, these 50 other things that all very valid. But, like, you just can't worry about that while you're doing this.
That's always my biggest piece of advice when people are competing. I'm like, when you're in an interview, if you are thinking about activewear, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, like,
you know what I mean?
not,
You're doing it wrong. And I also say, when you walk out of your interview, I hope you remember absolutely nothing, because that means that you were so present and so intentional with your words, rather than being calculated and remembering every single thing, so you can get out of that room and go analyze everything you guys just talked about. But I think that's one of the key things in competition or in life, is, like you said, is being present. Otherwise, we miss the little things. You know what I mean? Like, I know I keep talking about my assemblies today, but I love them and they're so fulfilling. But when I was singing a song today, and I got to the high schoolers, and I was like, okay, I'm going to sing a song for you guys. I was like, I sang The Little Mermaid for the elementary kids today. I won't sing it for you guys. And they were like, no, please sing it. So I sang that song. Then I sang My Man, what I'm singing at Miss America. And then a kid was like, will you sing one more? And as I'm singing, I usually kind of close my eyes. I, like, peek, and I'm being present with the audience. I'm looking, and this little 8th grader is, like, dancing to me singing, like total vibing. And I was like, you dude, come up here and take a picture with me. Like, the dance is killer. So you miss little moments like that, or miss little conversations that you could have seen, or even if you're driving and you're not being fully present. That's been one of my favorite parts as Miss Oklahoma, is driving in these cars, like on these long drives by myself. I drove 7 hours today. And I just kept calling my mom, and I was like, these trees are so beautiful. Oklahoma's just so beautiful. It's made me fall in love with the little things that our state has to offer. So like, look up and open up your ears and open up your heart and your mind to what's around you, and don't think about what's next, because in a blink of an eye that could not happen. And so it's important to not miss what's in the now.
100%. Yeah, I love that. I actually love that. Gave me so much validation what you touched on in an interview, because for years, I've walked out of mocks and I've walked out of my interviews, and everyone's been like,
they want to talk about it.
They're like, so, like, I've worked with different coaches, and now I work with someone who is the literal angel of my life, and I know that she's watching this and she's gonna cackle whenever she hears me say that. But she is such a godsend. But a lot of people in my past would be like, okay, like, so what do they say this? What do they say this? How did you answer? Blah, blah, blah. And then I would be like, I would walk out of my interviews. My mom's like ready to like kind of help support me. And she's like, okay, I have like the voice recording going, like just spit it out. And I'm like,
yep,
I don't know.
That's good.
I'm like, I don't know.
It's great that you don't remember that.
Well, it gives me validation, because
I
never have.
Those are the best interviews.
Yeah. No, truly. And I walked away, like, after a while, like, someone will say something, I'm like, oh, yes, this judge said this.
Yeah.
But I think it's really just, honestly, I was, again, telling my interview coach this the other day. I was like, what we do is so much of a metaphor for life, I feel like. Competing has put me in an environment of successful women. Yeah. And beyond the success of a woman is these people that love me dearly and support truly. I've had people that are my age, and then I've had people, I was a rookie, could not walk, the only thing carrying me was my talent, basically, my first year. And I had, because of connections and just like Lord's blessings, Alex Epler, she's doing the next episode, came into my life, and she was just an angel. Yeah. And it really taught me to enjoy life and to enjoy where I am. And I'm a planner.
Same.
I am a planner. I want to know what my life is going to look like. Yeah. But in this season, I do have a bit of a plan or guideline for what I want to do for college and stuff. But I'm really letting whatever happens to happen, because I'm like, I'm so content with, like, I was just telling one of my best friends, Hallie Francisco. We were just so talking the other day. We've gotten so close, and we were talking the other day, and we have some big things coming up in our lives. And we really don't know what's going to happen after it, like after we start to get involved in it. But it was just the genuineness of, we're being like so calm with whatever is going to happen. And that, like, the Lord will anoint that and like bring blessings from that. But I'm like, and that's something I've had to learn. It's definitely a process. Yeah, to do that.
I completely agree. I think we all have to learn things the hard way, unfortunately, and sometimes we learn things way too late. You're like, why couldn't I have felt that or known that when I was 15 years old, not 28? You're like,
I would have really appreciated that.
Would have saved a lot of tears or stress, But no, I think that's so important. But it's also good that you have, like, a system and a support system of girls, because that was something that I really lacked when I was young. And so I love that. My sister is still best friends with all of the girls that she was friends with, and so that's why pageantry has been kind of healing in a way. Yeah. It was weird that I put myself in a competitive arena in the first place, because I'm not a competitive person. I knew nothing about pageants, was not a talented person, and I was terrified of women, like terrified of them, because they made my life heck in school. And so it's been nice to be able to break down those barriers and to be able to let people in, and to be able to trust and build these relationships and bonds with other women. But it sounds like you'd be a great title holder if you love to plan, but you also love to go with the flow, because that's what the whole job is.
It's
so
just like
keep doing what you're doing, girl.
I'm like, we were on vacation, and like everyone's sleeping. Like, it could have been like my rest time, and I was like overwhelmed with all these ideas, and I like pulled out my computer, and I'm like typing down all these things that I want to do. And I was like, so now I have all these like great things that will come to be in the works, just as like a local title holder. But I was like, that's just, and then the next day I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that anymore. Like,
it's fine,
no more. But no, yeah, I love that. okay. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about 988 and share the light on that. They have, whenever they were coming to be and started to get like publicized, publicized, whatever. Everyone gets on stage.
I support you.
Was I don't know. Whenever I started to hear about it a lot more, it was about 2 years-ish ago, and I fell in love with what people were doing and the intentionality, and like you said, you're working with them. I was wondering if you could talk about it and really help give a resource to people that are struggling.
Yeah, for sure.
And all that.
Well, I've been able to produce a commercial with them where I open up about my own experience dialing 988. I myself had to call the hotline, and it was whenever my grandmother passed away. And I had a panic attack that I was going to lose everyone. Whenever you have a family full of people who struggle with mental health or substance abuse and you lose one of them, there goes every bit of validation that you're going to lose everyone else that's struggling with that. And so I immediately imagined myself losing my dad, losing my grandpa, losing my uncle. The list goes on.
Right.
And I've already, I don't talk about this much, but I lost my best friend and my high school sweetheart to the same exact thing. And so I leaned in on 988 because I was like, I'm losing my mind, and I can't breathe. This is causing actual anxiety. I can feel it. I can't breathe. It's stressing me out, and I can't get these horrible thoughts out of my mind. And so I just called them, and they really calmed me down. And I was really grateful. It was just a simple conversation. They asked, all they wanted to do was talk about my grandma. And for someone who was focusing so much on the negative, it was nice that they didn't take like the psychiatrist's route. It wasn't calculated. Their questions were very natural. They gave me the kind of conversation that I needed, which was, I felt like I was talking to a friend who knew my grandma. And so they kept the conversation lighthearted and positive. But the wonderful thing about them is that they're there for children. They are there for schools. They're there for family support. And what I also love is most hotlines are solely for suicide hotlines. But 988 is all-encompassing. It's for all mental health. It's for people who are struggling with anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts, substance abuse, people who are seeking shelter, all the things that someone could think that they need help or resources for. You can call them and get that. And they're partnered with so many different people internally that they can immediately direct you to the right place. If you're a veteran, they're going to connect you to the right veteran center. If you're a child, they're going to help you get in touch with family services or whatever it is that you need. But in terms of Ready, Set, Go, my platform, I've been able to partner with them and develop social emotional learning tools for the classroom. So word searches, coloring sheets, workbooks, online cartoons, all the cool things. And so it makes it kid friendly. And I'm hoping, me being Miss Oklahoma and not people thinking of me as a teacher, that I'm able to get these resources out there and to just let schools have that connection to know that they're there for everyone. And even if you put a poster up on the wall for kids to know about that they're struggling, I think that's important. But one of my favorite things about 988 and what drew me into them, before I ever made my phone call, I knew about them through Instagram, and they posted a video with a football player, an OU football player, telling his vulnerable story about his panic attacks. And I was like, I like this, because I never would have imagined some macho man who tackles people on the weekends has panic attacks. And it made me feel so normal. It made me feel like so understood. And so it's cool now that since I've won Miss Oklahoma, I've been able to produce the same kind of commercial with them. I said, I want to do that. I want to be open. I want to be vulnerable. And so I've been able to talk about my struggles with, substance abuse being in my family, but also I struggle with bipolar disorder and OCD. And a lot of people think that that's a scary thing, and Miss Oklahoma can't function, or a teacher can't function with those two disorders. And so half of my commercial was filmed as Miss Oklahoma, and the other half was filmed in my classroom. And it was cool to be able to talk about how both sides of me, seen in two very different worlds by two very different audiences, struggles with the same thing. And I'm also someone that puts on a performance and a face every day, whether it's in my classroom or it's on stage at an assembly. And so getting to talk about my different coping mechanisms in that commercial was really neat, and to just get to show kids that your teachers struggle too. So making teachers more human and approachable to people. But also, Miss Oklahoma's not perfect. So if you're not perfect, guess what? you have a place in this organization too.
Yeah. Would you mind talking a little bit about your coping mechanisms?
Yeah. So I actually talked about one of my favorite ones at IMiss Oklahoma, and I felt like such a goober. We were actually doing the onstage interviews with Alex, and she asked what is one of our beauty secrets, but it's a beauty thing, but it's also a really good coping mechanism for anxiety, especially, is every morning I dip my face in a giant bowl of ice cold water. And it kind of like puts your brain and your body into shock, and it wakes up your endorphins. And so that right there helps me get rid of my anxiety attacks that I typically have in the morning. And so I do that, but I also love to do kickboxing. I love meditating. I love to move. But one of the things that I have found to be the most healing for me is reading the Bible. And that's not something that you would have heard me say 3 years ago. Yeah. Like, at all. It actually wasn't until IMiss Oklahoma week that I opened up a Bible for the first time in 20 years. And it's because another contestant gave it to me. And I got my own hotel room this year. And I was like, because I just needed to be alone. And it's easier that way. And so when I went back to my hotel room, typically when I compete, I'm going to just be honest, I would rewatch the competition that night, rewatch myself and critique myself. But instead, I closed my laptop and I opened up that Bible that Lauren Frost gave me, and I read it all night before my interview. And I feel like I woke up with like a heart of gold. I didn't need to talk to anyone on the phone. I didn't need to do a mock interview. I did my makeup. I sat on the edge of my bed and I was ready to go, because I felt like that one night of reading scripture really opened up so many opportunities for me to learn about myself and what I was missing. And so for me, that's what I do now. Every single night I make time to read a devotional. But if you ask anyone who knows me, my favorite coping mechanism is snacking, in a healthy way.
You sound literally just like me. My mom's probably laughing to herself.
I love to eat candy. It makes me so happy. And people would think IMiss Oklahoma like eats like a queen, whatever that means. I do not. I love Taco Bell, and I love to get 2 or 3 Starbucks every day because I deserve it. And I love to eat candy before I go to bed. And so getting to indulge in the things that I love is a coping mechanism, because I'm treating myself and I'm not making myself feel guilty for what it is that I'm consuming.
Oh yeah, I love that so much. Yes, asking for people, but just for myself, because I walked in, and again, anyone who knows me, or one of the biggest reasons I fell so much in love with Fill Your Cup was because it gave me a safe space to talk about my anxiety. And I dealt with very deep depression, and I've had some very specific, very big moments that were a lot to push through. But the first one that I ever experienced was me sharing with my mom sophomore year that I think that I'm not supposed to be here. And it was very scary, because I've grown up a believer, and I know in my heart and in my being that you are here for a purpose. Like, I believe that so wholeheartedly. No matter what your story is, no matter what you've done in your past, doesn't matter what you will do in your future or what's happening right now, like, you are here for a reason. And that was really hard to have that thought, because I was like, what have I, been thinking, what's going on? And mental health is scary.
It is.
It really is. Because it's so internal. And as someone, again, I put on a face. Most people didn't know what was happening. I love pictures, and I don't mean to say this in a fake way, but if you looked at my Instagram, I looked like I was doing fine.
Yeah, agree.
And I wanted so badly, again, as like a people pleaser. I was trying to please others, and you wouldn't be able to tell. But I walked in, I took a very long time. I was literally talking to my therapist the other day, and I've been going for almost like 2 years now. That's awesome. Is crazy. And I love it. I love it so much. It's mostly just a rant sesh. I think everyone can use a therapist.
That's what most of them are.
And it's so fun because she's like, huzzah, with me. But I've, like, you know, anxiety can be up and down. Mental health can be up and down because as is life. And life is not perfect.
Yep.
And I walked into Miss Oklahoma. I'd had a lot of changes happen, but I was ready. I was like, I was like, I feel good. Like, I feel really good. And I had actually gotten super sick that week. Anyone who was, like, close to me knows that, like, I was super sick. And I grub. Like, I love to eat. And I had become more toned and stuff because I was working out for, like, fitness and all that. But I think I had 2 meals the entire week at Miss Oklahoma because I had gotten so sick. And it wasn't a bug or anything. I never actually threw up. I was getting up at 5 in the morning. I love, like, Michelle Costas. And so I went to Blow and Glow for her and Tori. And it was nice to kind of get out and just, like, have, like, have fun conversation for the first, like, hour and a half of my morning. But then if I was distracted, I was okay. If I wasn't, I was, like, hurt. Like, we pulled up to the valet, and, you know, like, it smells like it's at a casino. So
that's best.
Cigarette smoke is strong.
Yes.
And I was, like, hurling over, like, the cigarette like trash cans because I was so sick. Awful. I literally hate. Nobody likes being sick, but I've, like, I'm pretty sure I have, like, a phobia.
I will try to force myself not to, which makes it worse.
Yeah, Mom is like, just throw up, and I'm like, I won't. So all that to say, I was just feeling horrid, and I kind of find out from, like, some people here and there that I maybe wasn't considered best for, not, like, by anyone important or judging or anything like that, but that maybe I wasn't as qualified because I had mental health stuff. And I think that was a lot to hear. Just, it was a very little thing, and everybody has opinions, and it wouldn't have bothered me, but I just gone through also a relationship where I was kind of felt, like, belittled for my mental health. And so I've, like, just, like, this still, like, learning coping mechanisms, and I think it's so important to hear about it from other people because I've picked up things from little people, whether that be, like, I had a friend who was just, like, who would just be with me, like, you know, I could just hold their hand, like, at breakfast. I remember we were all sitting at those tables, and those little circle tables before rehearsals, and Leah was sitting right next to me, and I was just, like, squeezing her hand. Or, you know, my therapist told me before I left, she was like, you keep gum with you. She was like, gum helps. And I love that people like you, or people like the football player, or even people like me who seem to have their life together in one way or another, are open to opening up about what they've gone through, because it is so normal and so okay. And I have full belief in myself, I have full belief in you, and I have full belief in everyone, no matter what they've gone through, no matter what sort of disability they have, whether that be physical, mental, anything that they've gone through. Again, I think it all comes back to, like, you're writing your story, and people's opinions are so great sometimes if there's someone that you would go to and you trust. But sometimes you gotta just let people say something and just brush it off the shoulder.
You 100% have to, and I've had to learn that the hard way being Miss Oklahoma, because I think some people think that whenever you get a title like Miss Oklahoma or Miss Oklahoma's Teen or whatever it may be, that all of your struggle goes away and all of your mental health problems will be solved. They're not. And so what that means is you already have this combustion of mental health issues, if you have them before you win, and then now it's compiled with an insane schedule. Duties, like for me, I'm an introvert, and everything I'm doing today is not introverted work. And so one of the hardest parts, I think, about being a title holder, and what I'm so glad that I think because of my age, that I adjusted my mindset on, was I have to be perfect. I can't tell people if I'm struggling. I can't post pictures without makeup. I can't post pictures if I'm tired, or I can't tell people that I'm tired if they ask how I'm doing. I said, well, yeah, I can. Because if I want people to join this organization, and I want people to be a successful Miss Oklahoma after me. I want them to know that it's hard.
Yeah.
I want them to know that it can be tiring. And I also want them to know that there are going to be days or weeks where you feel so alone. But that's part of it. And it's part of the growth journey. I'm grateful for those lonely moments in the car. I'm grateful for the times that I've made a wrong turn on my way to an assembly and had a little bit of anxiety because I thought I was going to be late. Because I'm still learning about myself. Even at 28 years old, there's still so much to learn and so much to discover about me. And so I hope that if a title holder is listening, whether they're local, state, or even a national title holder, to be authentic. Yeah. Because that's the one compliment that I've gotten going into schools is you're so real. You're so weird and you're quirky and you're honest. And I like that. And I'm like, when you think about people in the limelight, whether it's an influencer or social media person or celebrity, we don't think about the ones who seem to have it perfect. Yeah. We think about the ones that are real and raw. Yeah. And as title holders, I feel like we have that responsibility to be honest about our struggles and our hard days, because we have people who are looking up to us that want this title, and it's our job to help prepare them, to prepare for who comes after us for success. And that's even letting them know that it's not perfect, and you're going to have setbacks, and you're going to have failures, and you're going to have hard days.
Yeah. No, 100%. Yep. I love this conversation that we got to have.
You're the best.
I think that we can like wrap it up. But if I want to know if there's anything that you want to end on, or any big advice that you have for someone, whether it be someone day-to-day life, maybe someone in sports, someone who's trying to compete, an adult, a child, anything.
I think if your audience is a result of what you want your outcome to be with this podcast, then people who are listening have probably struggled with mental health or are looking for some sort of source of fulfillment in their lives and maybe advice. And for me, whether you're struggling with mental health or you're going through some own personal trauma, or you're dealing with uncontrollable circumstances as a kid, or you feel lonely or whatever it may be, just know that you're not alone. And I know that sounds so cliche, but every time I speak to an audience as Miss Oklahoma, one of the first questions I ask is, raise your hand if you've had a really bad day. And everyone's hand goes up, whether they're a pre-K or they are an adult or a principal in a building, or whether they are a legislator or a child of a legislator, hands always go up. And I think that one of the most beautiful things that I wish people realized more, because it would really bring us together in a collective sense, is that we actually all are the same. Yeah. Life is really hard, and we're all doing it, and we're all doing it together, and we're all going to struggle. We're all going to experience loss or grief or failure or setback. And so remind yourself that there's probably someone on the other side of the world who is feeling exactly how you are feeling. And I think that that's so important, because it'll bring us hope. Because sometimes when those hands go up, I impacted myself. Like if I'm having a bad day as Miss Oklahoma and I still showed up for this assembly and someone raised their hand, I'm like, whew, thank God these 300 people are having a bad day. It's so nice. Or these students that maybe don't think that they have anything in common in a classroom can look next to each other and say, oh, they have a bad day too? Maybe we could be friends. Yeah. Or maybe I can talk to them sometime. And so by us simply opening up and being vulnerable about our struggles, we can create such a big community together and heal one another without even knowing it.
Well, I love that.
Thanks.
I'm just really proud of who you are.
Hey, you're so sweet. Thank you.
Of course. Well, if anyone is interested in following along with Sunny, if you want to give like your Miss Oklahoma and personal Instagram, and all that.
You can follow me on Instagram at Miss America OK or Sunny M Day. And I have, oddly enough, I feel like I had to. I started a TikTok, and the handles are the same, Sunny M Day and Miss America OK. And I'm going to Miss America in 2 months, so you can follow me and follow my journey.
Yeah, well, I'm super happy I got to have you on today.
Me too.
And thanks everyone for tuning in, and I just hope you have a great day.